Hello, I'm Carrie Gard, and welcome to Teaside with Tech Marketing Leaders. Welcome back to the show. This is the second week in a row. I know y'all missed me. I missed you too. We're here. We're here for the long haul, at least through August. Maybe, and I look forward to booking shows beyond then into Q4. So don't you worry, I'm not going anywhere. Yeah, it's going to be awesome. I have quite the lineup for you. We are continuing our CRO series. I've absolutely loved hanging out with CROs and learning about the critical role they play when it comes to marketing and sales and how they see the world in helping us work towards those revenue goals. I know marketing, it's not technically our job to care about revenue, but at the end of the day, we all kind of got to care about revenue. So I brought in some experts who that's all they do is care about revenue, and they're going to help us here figure out how to care too. This week, I have Brian Nelson, who is the Chief Revenue Officer at Client Circle.
Client Circle.
Got those reversed. Client Circle, where he has been instrumental since May of 2023, leveraging his expertise in marketing management, digital strategy, and sales operations to drive revenue growth. Prior to this, he served as CRO at Shamrock Solutions and has held key roles such as strategic sales manager at Menlo and sales manager at Universal Forest Products. He's going to tell us his story, because that's really what it's about, whether marketing found us or we found marketing or CRO or sales. It's such a journey, and I could sit here and read his little bio, but really I want to hear it from him. So Brian, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much, Carrie. It's very nice to be here. I'm pretty excited.
Awesome. I'm excited too. It's lovely to have you. Why don't you kick us off and tell us, like I said, it's all about the journey. So what's it been for you? Where are you today? You're at Client Circle, but how'd you get there?
Oh, man. So I started in sales, but it was quite the journey. It started, believe it or not, 25 years ago. I moved to Chicago to be a musician. And living in Chicago is very expensive for a musician. And so just a little expensive. And to pay the bills, I had daytime. Now they would consider it a side hustle. I don't know if that term was that term 25 years ago, but I did a lot of things sales-wise to make money during the day. So I did telemarketing. I sold White Sox tickets on the street. I sold knives. I did a bunch of different things just to be able to supplement my income, because being a musician was very, very fulfilling, but did not pay the Chicago bills. So eventually that turned into just a full-time career in sales. And I got lucky. I lucked out. I got put in the right place at the right time and did some electronic sales and just high-level enterprise sales for some electronics that did some special things in defense. And so some like missile technology and things. And that's really where I learned a lot of deep negotiation and selling skills and long-term enterprise selling. And then I shifted gears a little bit and moved and got more involved in customer service and marketing and what that takes. And I mean, long story short, I did a lot of things in tech. And it was mostly around enterprise selling. And I got offered a CRO role, so I took it. And I learned a ton. It was like going from the minors to the majors when you become a CRO, because the whole game changes and you really have a 10,000-foot view, and you have to consider some things that you never had to consider before. Just being like a sales manager or a VP of sales, it's a completely different lens that you're looking at things. So, long story short, it doesn't seem like 25 years, but it's been 25 years of a journey to where I'm at today.
I can relate a little bit. I went to school for photography, and I was desperate to get to New York City. Desperate. And so my uncle said, well, I can get you into media planning, but you're going to become a photographer. You're not allowed to like it. And then after my first year, I called him and said, I'm really sorry, but I love it. So I
Right.
totally relate. I got to ask, musician, what instrument did you play?
I played saxophone.
Nice. So
Yeah.
a
And
little jazz.
I played some jazz. I played blues. I played anything that would give me a paycheck for really 3 years. I was a professional musician for 3 years. And yeah, when you're the food that you're putting on your table relies on it, you're not really like, I'll play rock, I'll play jazz, I'll play blues, I'll play Disney songs at your daughter's birthday party, whatever you want. You just tell me, right?
Anything to stop
Yep.
eating ramen.
Right,
100%.
exactly. Just tell me what you want to hear. So yeah, it was a good experience.
I love that. And ways to like, knock on those doors and sell those knives. That is yes to doing what you got to do for sure. One of the things you said that I really loved and I want to lean into before we get into the heart of our conversation is you said that you learned a lot in terms of deep negotiation and selling skills when you went to the missile technology. What differentiate, like, what do you mean by deep? What's the difference between knocking on doors and selling knives? I mean, I think we all kind of understand the difference, but I'd really love to hear. You have such a unique
Sure.
experience. I'd love to hear it from you.
Sure. So a lot of people, they don't always get the opportunity to sell missile technology. And there's a lot at stake. I'll just say that there's a lot at stake, and you come to the table with the understanding that this absolutely has to work, and there's no margin for error. And it takes a long time. I mean, when people talk about long sales cycles to land enterprise accounts, the missile technology and defense technology is up there quite a bit. I mean, like, it has to be tested and tested and tested and be proven and proven and proven. And then when you get to price, there's a whole negotiation with price. And it is, sometimes you're talking B2B, sometimes you're talking to members of the government about the new, funded missile program that's out there. Yeah, it was very complex sales. I will say that. I don't know if there's one that is there. I'm sure there is, but it was the most complex sell I'd ever been a part of. And I was really good at sales. And this was hard. It was hard for me. But it was very fun. It was super interesting. And talk about being the stupidest person in the room. I know other people say, oh no, Brian, but yeah, I was. There was a lot of rooms I was in, and I just stood in the corner, was like, oh, wow, these people are super smart. And I'm just here.
Yeah.
Right. So
I'm working with a client right now who's building a microfusion reactor.
Oh.
And
geez.
yeah, so I like, yes, to feeling very stupid in the room. Like, I understand how fusion works now, and I understand what they do and mostly how to sell, but the mechanics and the interconnectivity and like all of the moving pieces and how you like, build the sun is,
right.
No small feat. And it's to hear these guys talk about it and these women, it's like,
yeah,
profound.
it's
amazing.
But it's pretty cool. I would encourage anybody to, I mean, not necessarily do fusion and missiles, but get involved in high tech, anything like really high tech. It's pretty neat to see how that process plays out.
It really is. And shout out to our cybersecurity marketers who are on the line with us, who absolutely feel the complexity of what it is they're trying to sell. If anybody can relate, it is you folks. We are with you. One of the other things you said is you learned a ton from going to the minors to majors. I think you mentioned this of terms of what changes you experienced from the complexity of the selling side, but what made it feel, was it just the complexity that made it feel like you were like stepping up your game, or was it certain skills you used? Like, what really made you feel like you stepped into the arena?
I think one of the biggest things when you step from, and this is really true for marketers too, if you're going to go into a CMO role or some type of executive level role, was when I went from sales, just sales focused, to a CRO role, I really had to understand financials. And what I mean by that is everything costs something. The cost of this and the cost of that, and also understanding what is profitable and repeatable and reliable. You know, when you're in sales, it's kind of like, here's your sales target, just go sell. And you're like, oh, we're selling. And you never take a step back to say, what did that cost us to sell that? And what does the financial statements look like? And if I pull this lever here, how does it affect this lever on a financial statement? So I really encourage anybody who's in sales or even marketing today and they want to up their game is read a book on how to read financial statements. Like, get good at just understanding business acumen from a financial standpoint. It will change how you look at things. I look a lot at, here's all the actions we're going to do. What's the cost of that action? A lot of CROs look at, in the SaaS space, they look at CAC, which is customer acquisition cost, right? And what affects that? What increases it? What decreases it? And it's not that I didn't think about it, but it never was a main priority of mine when I was in sales. It was just like sales, just go sell, right? And you start to take a step back and you go, okay, should we really focus on selling everything under the sun, or could we actually achieve more growth just through better retention and increasing our customer value? Because that's a growth method that I think a lot of people in sales don't see, because they're paid on getting new customers. But a lot of companies grow by enhancing your current customer growth and improving your churn and retention. So those were things that became very apparent to me when I became a CRO.
Customer acquisition. So it's customer acquisition cost is something you look at now.
Oh yeah. For sure.
And so what goes into a CAC, just for those who are, I hope we're all familiar with it at this point, but sure. Humor me. For you specifically, like, what are you looking at? You mentioned, net new customers versus existing customers, but what are those, what are those costs? Is it headcount? Is it marketing budget? Is it all of the above? Like, what goes into that?
So if you're going to look at just like for basic CAC, if you're going to look at it for your company, like let's say today we want to figure out what our CAC is. So it's everything, every cost you incur to acquire a customer. So that means all of your sales staff, all of your marketing staff, all of those steak dinners that you took people out to, all those plane flights, every little cost there, that's all your customer acquisition costs. So you take that and you know that, right? And then you can figure out different things. And you can look at it in a vacuum, like what was our acquisition cost if we just did conferences, right? If we just did conferences, what was our spend on conferences? Now, this means that you have to get kind of dialed in on tracking where your money's going. Mm-hmm. And that takes another level of, depending on where you're at. I know my team, I say, what can I attribute to that? And that's where the marketing team, I think they kind of pull their hair out a lot, because I'm asking every week. Every week, I get a report from our marketing technologist on where did every lead or demo booked come from this week.
Originally? Or, okay, so it's not like a net. So even if they came back through and they're showing up again, you're going back to the original place that they came from.
We try to know from the original place. So that's a great example. So let's say they originally came from a conference. That's where we made contact. So we want to say that, hey, we got this from this conference. Now, maybe it was booked by an SDR. So let's say that. Did it come from the SDR, or did it come from the conference? does that tell you invest more in SDRs or invest in that conference, right? So I really like to know what the original source was. Where did we run into, where did this first take place? And then that tells you, okay, we should probably invest more into going to the conference. And then our follow-up action is having the go-to-market of an SDR calling on conferences. So the more data that you can have, the more equipped you are to make better decisions. And I know there's different methodologies that companies go through to track this, and it really depends on your business. But I like to know the original source and then what action we had to take to actually convert that to, it's for us, it's a demo. For others, it's a first meeting or a discovery meeting. Whatever that first thing is, what did that take? Okay.
So two things. It sounds like you're aligning it to almost the customer journey.
Yes.
So you're okay.
Yeah.
So it's not.
Oh, go ahead.
It's not the way you're saying it sounds like first touch and last touch, but I imagine the way you're sort of describing it is, I would imagine you're looking at all the in between, right? Yeah. It takes like 40 something stupid touches to get somebody from.
Right. We're trying to get better, and the technology is getting better and better every day, that you can get it to where they first came to our website on this date at this time. And then they opened this email. And then our SDR reached out at this time, and maybe they showed up at this conference, and then we did an SDR follow-up, and that's when they booked a demo. Hey, if your tracking is that good, great, amazing, right? Not everybody's is that good, but that's what it's getting to. Really, what you want to do is be able to just focus on those things that return results. I mean, from a CRO standpoint, if you're looking at CAC, customer acquisition costs, what are those things that you're going to put your money towards that's going to get you what you need out of it, right? I mean, really, that sounds like duh, but at the end of the day, that's what a CRO cares about, and that's what they look at. And
are you looking at on an aggregate level? I'm sorry, I'm getting really in the weeds. I'm going to pull back, y'all, I promise.
Yeah,
but
no
while
worries.
We're here, do you look at it on an aggregate level where like you take all your customers for the last quarter and then say, okay, what's the percentage of breakdown between where they came from on the last touch, whether it was through the website where they booked a demo or a cold call or whatever, and then sort of trace back through the steps to that first site and say, okay, 50% came from the event and 50% booked through a sales call, and then you sort of like divvied up in the middle? Or are you literally looking like, do you not need, so are you closing enough sales where it's like you could look on a one-to-one basis because you're not trying to look at thousands of folks and you're looking at a handful? Like sort of what's the...
Yeah, I think for us, we can trace I'll say the tail of it to a certain extent. So I'll give you an example. We went to a conference. It was a great conference. We booked, I think we got 12 demos at the conference, and then the SDR follow-up, even like a week later, was like 3. We booked 3 more. Now everything that goes towards that conference is 15 originated from the conference, but 3 took an SDR action, if that makes sense. And that's how we look at it, from that granular of a level, or at least that I do. So when I look at it, I can say, okay, is it worth it going back to that conference? And is it worth it to do SDR follow-up after the conference, right? Do both of those yield you results? So again, everybody's situation is a little bit different, but I think the more granular you can get at it, the better off you're going to be, because you could say, hey, we went to this conference, we only booked, let's say, 2 demos. Well, it wasn't really worth it. But what if you did a good SDR follow-up after that and they got 6 more?
Right. You can't really
well,
write the conference off.
right, is it worth it? And so
Yeah.
you can make better decisions just with
Assuming they bought.
assuming, right. And then you need to know where
Right.
those came from and then track them. So again, I'm going back
Yeah.
to, and you'll hear a lot of CROs do this, but the power of data helps. And this is where a lot of, I think, CROs and marketing, kind of run into each other because the CRO wants black and white data. Really? I mean, at the end of the day, they're like, what if I do A, how much revenue am I going to get off of that? And then a marketing person says, well, that's hard because we need to build the brand. We need to compete. We need to be at this show. We need to do all these things. And you can't always draw a direct straight line to it got us this amount of revenue, right? And so I think that's always the struggle.
Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. That's exactly where it took me there, Brian. You're doing my job for me. I appreciate you, because that's the crux of it, right? We're talking about all the easy things. It's easy to measure, mostly easy to measure conference output, and
right.
especially on the sales side, when every little detail is documented, ideally,
Right.
ideally,
Ideally.
in a Salesforce type scenario.
Right.
Where marketing is sometimes, mostly before we even know who the person is. We have a rough idea based off of targeting, but we don't have their name. We don't have their email address. Well, I mean, if you're going to, that's a whole other podcast I don't want to get into. Technically, you probably don't have their actual working email address until they sign up for something on their own. And a lot of times marketing is working in that before place of that knowledge versus sales working in the after. So talk to me about how you work with marketing when they show up and say, but we've done all this work on brand building and awareness. How's that go over with a CRO, brand building and awareness?
Well, I think from a CRO standpoint, you have to start to understand how essential marketing is, how difficult it is, and how much it's grown today. So let me give you an example. Marketing has to be involved in the whole shebang. And when I mean the whole shebang, the whole customer journey. It doesn't really end, unfortunately, for you marketers. It's very hard work. It means you have to be involved. What does it look like before their customers? And they just first hear your name, maybe on a podcast. They're like, what is that, right? All the way to what is it when they've been a customer for 5 years? You have to be involved in that entire thing these days. There's not I think for a certain maybe misconception was marketing does their job at the very front of I use a bow tie image, but maybe the top of the funnel. Marketing's at the top of the funnel and then it's sales. But marketing's job stops, that's not true at all, right? So marketing has to understand that complete journey and where the brand promise fits across that whole journey. So what I will say is, don't let me go off on a tangent here because I want to answer all your questions about marketing. But it's really important that so let me give you the gold standard first. Here's what every CRO wants. I'm just going to put it out there, and if other CROs want to argue with me, they can. But here's what it is. Qualified pipeline that your marketing brought in. That's it. What is the qualified pipe that you brought in? If you can give that to your CRO, he's a happy CRO, or he should be, because that's what he wants or she wants is qualified pipe. Okay. Now you have to do all these things to get that in. So you have to go to the shows and you have to build the brand and you have to put out the brand promise. And I think a lot of companies, especially in the startup phase or the very beginning phase, overlook how important that is. And what I mean is, I think we've maybe spoken about this before. Carrie, but you have to first, you got to have a product market fit. So you absolutely, what does your product do? Who's it for? Does it fit in the market? All those things. But second is not hire a bunch of salespeople and go sell it. Really a close second, or even at the same time, is your brand. What is your brand and how is your brand positioned? And what that means is, what is your brand promise? And I always use these terms and people laugh, but I say, think about if, like Taco Bell, when I say Taco Bell, everybody kind of gets a feeling, right? With Taco Bell. Yeah. What if I said, hey, Taco Bell made cars? What kind of car do you feel like would come from a Taco Bell car? I bet you can kind of like, well, that's ridiculous. You're thinking that, but you can already kind of get a feel. Now, okay, now I say Apple. All right, there's Apple. Okay, now Apple built furniture. What kind of furniture would this be? It gives you a whole sense, because that's coming not from, hey, it's a desk or something, but from Apple as a brand. Same thing. Right. If Disney does something, no matter what it is, okay, if I said Disney is going to make a car, what is that car? Right? It's ridiculous. I know it's ridiculous, but you want your brand to have that effect. And that means that's how you operate. Not only just the products you put out, but that's what you do for your customer. You have to start working on that right away. You have to establish that. And why? Because if that's not solid with your product market fit, I don't care how good of a salesperson works for you or you are, you're not going to get very far as a salesperson. So a lot of people don't put those things before hiring a salesperson. They say, well, let's just hire a bunch of salespeople and we'll grow and we'll be great. But if you don't have those two things established first, your salespeople are not going to do very well. Okay. And that all comes from marketing. So marketing, you have to really focus on, okay, great, we got your qualified pipeline, but we're also enhancing our brand. And why we go to this show is maybe not just to bring you qualified pipeline, but we have to build upon our brand promise or who we are, especially if competitors are there. Because if competitors are there, guess what? They're talking to your customer base without your presence there. So there are certain things that you have to look at from a CRO standpoint that it might be really hard to say, did we get any qualified pipeline from that? No, but you're almost kind of like playing defense. And that's worth something. But can you put a direct dollar value to it? Sometimes it's really hard. So I think one of the biggest challenges a CRO has is what produces direct dollars and revenue, and what things are protecting the revenue you have today. You have to do those actions.
Interesting. Yeah, I love that. I also think that it's twofold, where you have the bottom of the funnel direct correlation, causation really, between that qualified pipeline and the channels that got you there. And then it's the top of the funnel of all the contributors to the bottom of the funnel. Right. So one thing I like to talk about is paid search. So from a paid search standpoint, if you're doing non-branded keywords that are just in the industry of how people are searching for this problem they have, probably not going to result in direct pipeline because people are in research mode. They're not ready to buy. They do not want to talk to sales. They'll download that white paper because they don't have a choice and we gated it, and that's on us. But do not call them, please. Right. Do not call them, and wait for that branded search term to hit, because it will. Right. Yeah. So it's like one is going to affect the other. And I think being able to split it up and think that way is really helpful and takes the pressure off of looking at the whole pie as everything is contributing. Because if you put in that top brand cost and obviously it's all going into CAC, but if you put that
Right.
cost into that initial ROI of how, and not breaking them apart to really see what is, if you can look at it from that lens, you can actually really tell better how one is helping and protecting the other.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I love that. I think that's
Yeah.
so helpful.
No, I liked how you put that. You're exactly right. It's really hard to, I don't hate it. It's a love-hate relationship with that term ROI, because what we want to be able to say is everything that we do, what's my return? What's my return on that investment? And there are a lot of things in this world that there's a return there, but you can't completely quantify it, right? And you have to be somewhat comfortable with that as a CRO, and just know that there's actions that you need to do as a brand, especially if you're going to have a deep brand promise. And like you said, like paid search, you got to be out there, because what is the latest thing I heard? I heard that, and I really believe this, that if you looked at the whole market, only 3 to 5% are ready to buy today. So if you just happen to contact that 3%, that hey, we just happen to look, it's like it's not shooting fish in a barrel. It's the opposite. It's finding a needle in a haystack, right?
Yeah.
So most of your marketing activities are really building awareness, and you're marketing to people who are not ready to buy. But you have to market to them, because when they eventually, for that short period of time, fall into that 3%, that you got to be there. You got to be there, right?
So how does that line up? Let's go back to CAC then. That's where we started this whole conversation. So when you're looking at awareness and you're looking at everything that went into that buyer and figuring out what levers to pull, how does brand and awareness show up in that, of saying, yes, we got to keep this on, or we can't attribute it, so we turn it off, when you're talking about that customer acquisition cost?
Man, great question. I was hoping you'd tell me. No, just kidding. I
have an inkling, but
right. The biggest tool you have, or asset, is look at your historical data and see what's worked in the past that is working, whatever that indicator is, right? And really, get out there and talk to your customers. It's amazing how many companies sit there and make guesses about what worked, but nobody's actually just said, hey, where did you first interact with this? Well, I ran into you 2 years ago at a show. Oh, what show was that? Or you might say, oh, you were recommended, a year ago, but we never called you. Where did your name first come up? So you can figure that out. You can figure that out through a lot of web analytics. There's a lot of software now that will say, hey, this is the first time they visited your website or whatever. But really, talk to your customers, talk to them, and ask them, where did you first encounter us? So I think that's important. And so that
referral, I imagine referrals come up, community and referral is going to be something you can't measure.
No,
unless you ask the question.
I mean, it's really my friend Sam has a cousin who he uses you, and we were on a trip and he mentioned you, so I Googled you. And that looks really weird, because you're like,
so then brand gets the CAC in that, but really it started with the referral.
Yeah. So, the thing is what do you turn off? What do you turn on? You try to find out as much as possible that you can relate to data, but you also look for lagging and leading indicators. Okay. So when you're doing actions, I always like to say, let's look at, some people use a 6 month. I use a 6 to 9 month. Whatever we're doing today is probably going to greatly affect our business 9 months from now. And if we have a dip 9 months from now, I'm probably going to look at what marketing and sales activities were we doing in June of 2024. And that'll tell me a lot. Now, does it point to the exact, problem or issue? Probably not. Man, I'd love it if it did. Sometimes it does.
Sometimes.
So you can really diagnose that, but maybe you didn't go to as many conferences. You tried something else. Well, okay. Maybe you were, maybe maybe you didn't do as many webinars. Maybe you changed your go-to-market strategy. Again, you can't, this is not a perfect science. If it really was, everybody'd be in business, right? No company would go out of business. Everybody'd do this. Everybody'd grow.
Yep.
But that's what you want to shoot for. And you have to be ready to change. I think that's one of the hardest things for marketing now is marketing changes fast. Marketing has huge demands on it. And what worked yesterday does not mean it's going to work in 3 months. So you always have to be ready for change. It's a lot. It's very tough.
It is a lot. And actually, I feel like because of the complexity of the data, and now you're working with AI and algorithms, and that there's a little less control as marketers we have. Before, we could pull every single lever all the time. And now there's so much in a black box behind the scenes. Here's a great example. So we had a client who ramped up budget, and we sent all of our Google ads into a learning phase because we did it. Right. So all of a sudden, when you add a bunch of money, they go, wait, you're in different, now you're bidding against these guys instead of these guys. And now there's all this stuff happening. So now they go into a 2-week learning phase. Okay. So we just lost 2 weeks of performance because that's going to take time. And we ramped up, and then they're like, oh, wait, we're not sure. So we got to slow it all down again.
Right.
And then they're like, no, we need it for the quarter. We ramped up again. And so we lost a whole month. Right. So while marketing could change, there was a time where it was easy to change on a dime. That was the beauty of PPC versus something more like a direct site buy or DSP. But now, like it can't be that quick. It's got to be a bit more dialed. And I think, to your point, the historical data plays such a lovely role in that. Of yes, maybe what didn't work 6 months ago isn't working now, but actually probably what was working 6 months ago, we're no longer doing. And we probably should go see what we changed to get back to what we were doing that was working so well.
Right.
And so another example of that was we had a different client who wanted to shift away from branded terms. They're like, putting too much in brand. We need to get into non-brand. We were like, you got to do both. You got to balance it. And they're like, no. We're going to go awareness. We're going to go non-brand. And then 3 months later, 6 months later, their leads tanked. Their qualified leads tanked, right? So it's like, wait, going back and looking, like we were at 30-40% spend in brand. We got to get back there, right? So I think, to your point, while marketing changes a lot, sometimes there's a tried and true, and that's okay too. And we can't move quite as quickly as we were used to, because we got a lot of, we're in a headwind. It's tough out there for sure.
Yeah.
So I love what you're saying of the time, like looking at giving yourself that breathing room to look at a long time frame is awesome.
Yeah. I think, you're exactly right. Agility is super important, but you can't, sometimes now, because things move so fast, people want to abandon the best practices just as fast. But like, hey, this is a fundamental that you're going to have to, do, because this is the game that we're playing. And the magic is, okay, how much of that game do you play, and how much do you throw it out the window? And I think unfortunately, there's a different answer for every industry and every business.
That's true.
Yeah.
It's true. In terms of the testing, it sounds like when you're talking about moving quickly, it's more of an iterative process.
Sometimes.
Is that the right way to think about it?
Yeah, I would say that first, so what you're going to do as a CRO is you're going to look at all your go-to-markets. And I like to call it your mix of how you sell, right? Go-to-market is just a fancy term or something for, hey, how do you sell your stuff, right? How do you sell it and where do you sell it? Do you have a salesperson reach out? Well, that's a go-to-market. Do you have an SDR? Well, that's a go-to-market. Do you have paid ads? That's a go-to-market. How are you going to market? And I think sometimes you look at that, and one mistake that I see companies make is if something's not working, they kind of tear up all their go-to-markets. Like one go-to-market's not working, they'll be like, we need to change everything.
Start from scratch.
Starting from scratch. They're going to redo, like they might have 5 or 6 go-to-markets. And then pretty soon, you're not really selling anything. You're just spinning your wheels trying to change everything. I think there's a good practice to really tackle each and really dial in what's working and what's not. And, you know, from a CRO's perspective, really get a feel for what your marketing team is telling you, what your customers are telling you, and what your marketing team is telling you. Because I guarantee you, if you're a CRO, you can sit there and make all of the guesses and assumptions, but you don't really know. You're not talking to the customer every day. Some CROs maybe, and great. You need to get involved with your team and what they're doing and listen to what they're saying. And then, yeah, I guess to answer your question, is it an iterative process? Sometimes you're just tweaking things. I think paid ads is like that a lot. Is, okay, we tried this. We got these results. How do maybe we can twist this knob and rephrase this and whatever and get more out of it, right?
Yeah, add more non-branded keywords and test those. We created a testing campaign just for that. Like, we wanted to try new keywords, but we didn't want to send things into learning phases. So now a new practice is we created just a simple testing campaign where it's a hodgepodge of keywords, but it gives us a sense of, okay, we want to try this new category, and do we have any legwork there? Oh, we do. We should go break that out to its own campaign and ad group. Let's go figure that out.
Right.
I do think, yeah. Paid search is a great testing ground for sure. An iterative testing ground.
Yeah, and it's kind of it's good and bad because it kind of has a laboratory feel, like back to the lab. Okay, now here's our new, right?
Our new hypothesis.
Right. Except for there's no like outside funding that's just like, hey, just do whatever you want, guys. Like there's rarely that. Now especially like, hey, every time that you test this thing in the lab, we need to get some results out of it. And that's a hard position to be in. So
yeah, it allows you to move a little quicker when you have that testing campaign of, if something's not working, you just get to turn it off without tanking all your other sending things in the learning phases. So I agree. It's every dollar counts, especially in paid. There's a lot of scrutiny on that. So you want to make sure you're spending thoughtfully. In terms of just running out our conversation, Brian, which I'm so grateful for. And really, you're such an ally to marketing. I don't know that all marketers feel like they have somebody in their corner, especially on the sales and CRO side, because they're under such a microscope to kind of what we're talking about. And so it's really helpful to understand how you work with marketing as a great framework of how we all can work together. It's still a conversation. It's wild, but it's still the never-ending conversation of marketing and sales alignment. And I'm learning that the CRO role is crucial in that. And it not just because you're the bridge of how sales is working and then seeing how marketing is affecting that, but also how you show up. So I'm just really grateful for how you support marketing and how you understand. It's interesting too, because you come from a sales background and not everybody understands or wants to understand how marketing works. And so it's just like, just do your job and deliver qualified pipeline, but turn this channel off because it's not delivering.
Right. I think if you're let's say you're a VP of sales and you want to be a CRO, let me rephrase what I said before. The two things you need to do, and almost three things, is read a financial book and put yourself in marketing shoes, whether that means join. There's a ton of marketing groups out there. Join it, sit on there. And a lot of them are free. You can sit in, listen to webinars, like even this one. Listen to a webinar. There's so much out there. And I had my eyes opened to how difficult marketing was when I was trying to tackle it with my marketing leaders. And they were running into issues. And I, of course, big ego salesperson, like, oh, yeah, this is easy. I mean, marketing is easy. We can figure this out. And then realizing like, oh no, this is really hard. And this is, oh, geez, this is, oh, wow, okay. And understanding what's there and really understanding how competitive the world is and what you have to do to get the result of marketing. The result of marketing is getting attention. It's like standing in a crowded football stadium and everybody's yelling and you want them to hear you. And so if somebody said, hey, you need to get this person's attention, they're at the 50-yard line, you're 50 yards back, and the whole thing is full of people yelling at that person, but they need to pay attention to you. How would you do it? And I think when somebody who has a sales background finally gets put in that seat, and you have to do it over and over and over and over and over and over and over again consistently, and then answer to somebody when it works and answer to somebody when it doesn't work. That's what marketing is. And so I've had the fortunate position of probably realizing that, but it takes effort. Like, you can't just say, I'm now a CRO and I'm really good at sales. You have to go take the marketing journey. I would say the same for customer service. Put yourself in a customer service call. Have that awkward conversation where a customer says, well, I want to cancel and you guys stink and you did this and this wrong. How are you going to fix it? Just be there. And I always tell people the same end that if you're a marketing person, you really want to see what an SDR goes through, cold call some people. Not everybody's going to do that.
Or even just listening to the existing calls from the experts.
Right? Yeah, just listen to them. But tough. Yeah, I think just put yourself through a marketing journey, and you'll get it. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't ask more from your marketing team, but you can realize what is ahead of them and what can be done and what can't be done. And I think it's really unfair just to expect results without knowing what that journey is for your marketing team or asking them to be. So
I love that. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for you, Brian, for being on the show. Before we go, I have two follow-up questions. One I skipped because we got into our conversation so naturally. I didn't want to be like, oh, hold on, let me ask this random question and break up our combo. But I do love to know from your standpoint as a CRO in the seat you're sitting in, what's a challenge you're currently facing? I mean, these sounds like all challenges you've sort of navigated, but where are you today and what's hard?
I think we were talking it like, how do you get repeatable results from paid search? That's one thing that we're tackling right now because I think predictability is harder than ever. Where, hey, I'm doing actions A, B, and C, I'm going to get result D. I I think that's hard. So that's one of the things that me and my marketing team, we're actually having. Here's the thing, you asked about this. How do you do alignment between sales and marketing? We have a go-to-market get together on the 25th of June. My sales team, my marketing team will be there. We'll be talking about how to tackle all of this together as a team. I think you got to do more as a team. You should also have marketing involved in sales and customer service, or at least looking at that whole picture. You should have sales involved in marketing. And again, like, just involve people. You really, I need to even do this more, is have salespeople involved in marketing activities, have marketing people involved in sales activities. It can't just be done where, hey, we have our one time a year where sales and marketing talk, and that's, now they're aligned. that just doesn't really work, right?
No,
So
it's that trust building. So how often do you meet then?
I meet with marketing every week. We're meeting on the 25th, and we changed it up a little bit. Right now we meet quarterly. I would say we're probably going to change that to meet monthly. And then I would even encourage people to have projects, certain marketing initiatives, have sales be a part of that. And it's not because marketing is doing it wrong. It's to have sales learn what marketing is going through and the challenges, and then give insight onto, hey, here's what would happen and here's what wouldn't. And then vice versa. And I also would suggest to marketing team out there that they get involved with customer service, because marketing has to market not only to new customers and prospective customers, but how do you market correctly to current customers?
Yeah.
How do you market correctly to unhappy customers? That's the thing that nobody addresses, because everybody has a certain segment that is not exactly happy, but there's a way to approach them. So, maybe I'm throwing too much at you, but
that's a whole other podcast right there, Brian, and I'm here for it. We are going to do a CRO roundtable, and I look forward to having your perspective in that. So I will be circling back with you. Before we go, last question is, you're more than a marketer. Clearly, I'm a musician. Do you still play?
Every now and then I do. I'm playing at my niece's wedding. She's going to allow me to play a song in about it's actually 1 week away. So it'll be a lot of fun.
That's awesome. So in terms of 2024 closing out here, we got summer's here finally. We're all very excited about that. What are you most looking forward to in the second half of, I can't believe I'm saying the second half of 2024? Are you most looking forward to?
What am I most looking forward to? For us, there's been a lot of change in our industry. And I think we're finally, like, you know how change kind of like rocks your boat and then you kind of got to get going again. We're finally through everybody going through that tumultuous time. And I'm really excited for what we're going to do at Client Circle in the next 6 months, because there's some really cool things that we can do. But it just took us a while to figure out, hey, what are we going to do? And I think we have that nailed. So now we can execute and do it. And that's always my favorite, right? So exciting. There you go.
I do feel like, just so you don't feel alone in this, the last 18 months, I would say everybody was rocked in our industry. I felt like we all got to ride through COVID while the travel industry was rocked at COVID. As soon as it hit, the rest of us like rode through that wave. And now we're sort of, having that, we had that sort of second wave come last year into the first half of this year. And now we're like seeing the other side collectively. So I'm with you on that. Yes. Yes to that.
Absolutely. Same for us.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Brian, this was so great. How can people, if they want to learn more about being a CRO, if they're stepping up from sales, or more about how to align with marketing, where can they find you?
Just you can reach out to me on LinkedIn is probably the best way. Just come to my profile. I accept a lot of invitations, so I don't like have a wall up and block everybody. If you just want to ask me questions or whatever, I'm an open book. And if you go to clientcircle.com, sure, you can find me there too. So, but yeah, probably LinkedIn's the best.
Awesome. Well, you heard him, folks. Head on out and connect. I'm so grateful. Brian, thank you so much. If you like this episode, please like, subscribe, and share. This episode was brought to you by MKG Marketing, the digital marketing agency that helps complex brands get found via SEO and digital ads. It's hosted by me, Carrie Gard, CEO and co-founder of MKG Marketing. And if you'd like to be a guest, hit me up. I'd love to have you. I have to book the rest of the year. So let's go. August through the end of the year. I need guests. I'd love to have you on. Reach out. Thank you again, Brian.
All right. Thanks.